Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny. Right on, right on, right on. We are Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
How are you guys? Happy Saturday. It's our serious Saturday.
It is.
But we're not that serious. Maybe a little. I don't know. I know we had some birthdays we wanted to give a couple shout outs to.
Yes, we'd like to say happy birthday to our friend Deb Banks. That's Shay Carroll's mom from Paranormal Buzz Radio.
Who we did a great investigation of Wilson Castle in Vermont with, and hope to again in the future.
Also, we'd like to say very happy birthday to Deborah Lynn Katz.
That's right.
It's a good friend of ours as well.
And if you guys remember on our New Year's Eve prediction show, which is in the archives or wherever you're watching us right now, we did some predictions and we did them with the audience. We had a lot of audience participation. It was Kristen and I with Deborah Lynn Katz and Michelle Freed. And so you had four, and I know we don't call ourselves psychic, but we're psychic. And we're all doing predictions. It was a pretty good prediction show. A lot of people run those, of course, on New Year's Eve, but ours are coming true. We're actually going to in the process of going back now and listing them because I noticed last week that I had called out that there would be an issue. We were talking about the Olympics with a Russian figure skater, and there'd be a controversy about that. And if you guys are following the Olympics, I'm sure you know about the 15-year-old skater, and they weren't going to have her compete. She tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, but they let her compete anyways on the condition that if she wins, she didn't get a ceremony. So that I called that.
You did.
I don't call that, and I think there are some other things too. So we want to actually going to go back and we're going to list them.
Yeah.
Some of you guys that are watching the show today, I'm sure we're on there also making predictions with us. So just a little reminder and heads up, and you'll see that coming soon.
Also, just to let you know, my computer is deciding to reboot itself. Yep. Yes, it has issues. I'm about to throw it out the window. So just give me a chance with the comments and everything. I got to load everything up, all the pages. So
yeah, we always have trouble with that computer, and we're having a couple of glitches getting ourselves live. And we
our
see
guest was too.
Anne-Marie Young is out there.
Hi, Anne.
Hey, Anne-Marie. Hey, Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Canada. And yeah, you guys keep the comments going. We'll throw them up on the screen as we can, and Kristen will answer you on her decrepit computer.
A decrepit laptop.
But I did want to also say this is going to be an inspiring show and a good show, and very appropriate to us. My father has been battling a disease, and it's the greatest battle of his life, and I just wanted to dedicate this to him. He is the bravest man I know, and even strongest man by far, and huge influence on me, and I love him very much. We all do. This is for you, Dad, if you're listening, and yeah, we love you. You've been a huge influence on my own fatherhood. Our guest today is Reverend Peter Panagore, and he went ice climbing with his partner on a the world famous Lower Weeping Wall, along with the Ice Fields Parkway in Alberta, Canada. On their descent, they became trapped on the side of the mountain. As the sun set, he was overcome by exhaustion and hypothermia. Obviously, he died on the side of that mountain. And in those minutes on the other side, he experienced hell, forgiveness, and unconditional love. Heaven was beautiful. So let's bring him right on. Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Kristen. And a word about your dad. I hope strength and power to him and healing.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, too.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, we're so excited to hear. I love these kind of stories. They really do give us all some kind of hope. And it fits into our paranormal thing, too, because we wonder about what it is that we're talking to and how these things come to be. We talk a lot about saving souls and how they get crossed into lights.
Yes.
All kinds of array of things. So welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. And please tell us your story. What happened to you?
Well, so I was 21 years old, just turned 21. It was March break. And I just had my birthday just last week. And so same time of year, I was ice climbing in Alberta, Canada. I had been on exchange from my university and didn't want to go back to Boston for spring break. So I looked for someone to go have a high adventure with and the outdoor club. And I found a fellow by the name of Tim. We found out we had complementary skill sets. We decided to go off on a 10-day snow caving and ice climbing trip in British Columbia and Alberta, right on the border there.
That's a brave endeavor right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful up there.
It really is.
Yeah. I was an adventurous person. I started winter camping when I was in Boy Scouts at 11 on the Frostbite winter camp, and continued that right through my high school and college, and was a mountaineer, climber, outdoors, ski patrol, anything kind of winter sporty nature. And so it wasn't outside of my capacity. It was the biggest trip I'd ever taken, that's for sure. I had earlier that year spent 30 days in the wilderness. So I had that this whole year was all about being in the wilderness. So we went up to this climb after we went snow caving for 8 days. We'll swing around to the whole death thing. And I went with only one ice axe and an ice hammer, and that was my fatal flaw. So you're supposed to climb with 2 axes, but I couldn't come up with 2 axes. I didn't have money to buy all the gear, so I borrowed and rented. And I could come up with one axe and 1 hammer. And I decided that I was capable enough as a climber. I'm kind of a mountain goat, or I was when I was younger, just a natural sort of balanced jumping sort of person. And I decided that I was going to do this. And Tim, who was a certified lead climber, I need to say that because he had expertise in ice climbing. I was a good climber, but I'd never gone ice climbing. So we decided that I could do this. But the problem became that the hammer is so much smaller than the axe. And when you set the axe in the ice, you can actually let go of it because there's a strap. So you can let go of this thing and you can dangle on it and rest.
Okay.
That's strong.
Right? But on the hammer, you can't rest. And this was the problem. So the hammer is much shorter. You can use it to climb. It's not meant for climbing. It's meant for putting in ice screws, crank this ice screw in, or chip away at the ice.
Sure,
but
sure.
You can climb with it. So what the problem is that I became tired faster than all of the other climbers on the climb that day. We weren't alone that day. There were other climbers there. So I slowed our climb down significantly. I had to rest a lot. It's 500 or 600 feet up on a 10,000-foot mountain. And I should set the scene a little bit here. We're about 70 yards in off the Ice Fields Parkway. Saskatchewan River is right across the street, right across the parkway. There's a parking lot. There are mountains on both sides. And this is a very rural place. It's between Jasper and Banff. And I don't know what the population is, but it's got to be like 3/4 of a person per square mile in this whole. It's just like nobody lives there.
You're just out nowhere, right?
You're in the middle of nowhere, right? And nearby is a warden's cabin. And we had spent the night before at the warden's cabin, talked him into putting us up overnight by cooking him dinner. And so we got to know this guy a little bit, and we signed into the wilderness log that morning. And the next morning we went right to the climb, and we were the last team to get to the climb. So all these other teams are climbing, and the scary thing happened right at the very beginning. I hadn't even taken the rope off my shoulder yet. And I'm like looking down, getting my gear together, and I hear someone yell, "Falling!" And I look up and I see a guy fall. And this guy falls 30 feet maybe, but he's on a rope and ice screws. So he falls down and he does this maybe 30 feet in full. So 15 feet above and a 15-foot line. And the guy below him grabs the belay, and this guy falls, and everybody there holds their breath. Bounces, waits. He says, "I'm okay." We're all like, "Oh my God." Everybody's so this huge adrenaline rush, not even on the ice yet.
Sure.
So we're all like, whoa.
Dude.
Huh. So we begin our climb. Tim's the lead climber. I clean up behind him. I'm a good climber just as a natural person, but my speed is much slower. And so by the time we reach the top of the climb, 500 or 600 feet up, the whole day, we have the whole day on the ice. We drink our water, we eat our lunches, we set our screws, we take them out, we do all this stuff. We get up to the top, but before we get there, we realize how long it's taking us. We know that we're going slower than everybody else. People are already descending before we reach the top.
Oh, wow.
And so by the time we sit down, I already know we're in serious trouble because the sun is setting. By the time we reach where we were supposed to be 2 hours before, the sun has set. And the last team is walking out because it takes a long time to get down. So they began the last team began their descent like hours before we even get to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't turn around and go back. It's not like hiking up to the top of a mountain. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, you gotta go to the top before you can go down. That's just the way the whole thing works. So we get to sit down on this ledge that's maybe the size of a couple of desks, office desks, and we're sitting on this ledge, and in terms of depth, like 2 desks deep. So we're sitting on this ledge, the sun goes down, the temperature drops about 30 degrees. And an hour or so before, I already know we're in serious trouble. And I've been working on Bridger Bowl in Bozeman, Montana. I was a college student on exchange to Montana State, but I was ski patrol at Bridger Bowl. That's, on after school and on weekends.
Sure. This was your thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's my thing. So I was all trained up on hypothermia. I was the first aid person on this trip. And so as soon as we get to the top, I'm thinking to myself, this is it. We're in a deadly situation. There's 500 or 600 feet up. We have no food with us because it's a day climb. We have no water with us because we drunk it all. We have nothing to keep us warm. Temperature drops 30 degrees. Immediately, we get these violent shivers. It's like every single muscle on my body tenses and relaxes in like no rhythm. Like they're all independent of each other. So I'm just like this, like this shaking sort of. And Tim, he's in the same situation. Our jaws start clattering like in a cartoon, clack, 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 and can't stop it, can't control it. It's the body saying, I'm getting really cold. I'm going to get warm, and this is how you're going to do it. So Tim hauls up this rope. It's a 300-foot line that you use double, so it's 150 feet long. So he pulls up this rope, and he pulls it up because we're scared. Okay, we are scared. We're level-headed. We're not panicking. We're like doing everything right. But he pulls up the rope a little fast, and it gets into a knot, a big 300-foot tangle. And probably I wasn't watching what was going on, but he probably dropped an end into like the line somewhere. I don't know what happened. And we talked as he pulled up the line. Plus, we're having this conversation with our jaws clattering. What are we going to do? How are we going to face this? There's a cliff behind us. There's 9,000 feet of ice above us, like of rock and mountain and ice and snow. There's about 10 feet of snow on the ground. It's got to be 30 below with the wind. It's really, really cold. But it's a dry cold because it's Canada. So it's
right, but
it's dry cold.
Freezing.
Really, really cold.
Oh, really cold.
We're freezing to death really fast. And we discussed snuggling up against each other against the rock face. What you're supposed to do when you're in the wilderness and you get in trouble, you're supposed to stop what you're doing and stay where you are and survive. Well, we couldn't stay where we were. We figured if we stayed where we were going to die. For sure, we were going to die. So we decided that if we were going to die, then what we had to do was do our best to get off the mountain. And so that's what we decided to do.
Wow, you literally came to terms with that.
Was the air considerably thinner out there too? Joanne Stewart commented that the oxygen level gets thinner.
Well, I wasn't up that high. I was only, probably the ground. I might have been let me guess here. So probably the The valley is maybe at 5,000 feet. I'd have to think about that. I'd have to look that up. So I was maybe at 5,000 or 6,000 feet, but I was acclimated to that. I wasn't up at 10,000 or 14,000. I've been up to 14,000 feet, and the air is thinner at 14,000 feet. But this is maybe, say, 6,000 feet. And I'd been living at 5,000 feet. So it's not that huge a difference. It wasn't so bad, that part of it. It was definitely about the cold. And so
it was everything else. Yeah.
it was dark. Okay. So the sun goes down, a bazillion stars. The thing about, I'd never seen stars like this before. Well, during the week before I had, because I'd been out in the wilderness, but there are 10 billion stars in the sky, and you can see the individual colors of these stars. So there's green and red and blue, and you can see, it's like a sparkle show. So there's enough light that we can see. But I had to pull off my gloves to untangle the ropes. So I started my frostbite. And I'm going to, by the end of this whole event, I had 2nd-degree frostbite, which meant when I went on this theater tour that I was going to go on in a couple of weeks, I had blood blisters, and obviously I survived, but I had deep enough frostbite on my fingers, on my ears, on my toes, that I'm still troubled today by all this stuff. So we're sitting up on this ledge. The rope is in a tangle. I have to pull off my gloves, and they're just leather over rag wool. And I'm dressed. I've got long underwear on and a down vest and a coat. I'm dressed for the climb. I'm not dressed for the night. So
yeah.
I pull off my gloves.
There, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I pull off my gloves and I untangle the rope, and I get colder and colder. And by the time I get the rope untangled, we decided that we were going to traverse and descend. So we rope up. Tim takes the lead. And how much do you want me to go into deep detail here? We got a couple of hours. I can
okay. I like the way you're painting this picture, because it's putting this there, and I'm trying to imagine what this must feel like. It's one thing to just think about it, but it's one thing to hear the details of like what is really going on when this occurs.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about my emotional state. Because we were petrified. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, not just from dying, but from surviving this night, going through this night. I was absolutely out of my mind, frightened, and so was Tim. But we both had very level heads, so neither of us panicked. Both of us stayed as externally calm as we possibly could. And we were very careful about everything we did, except for when we made mistakes because our brains were freezing, which we did. So we make this traverse. We're out of our minds, scared. We get to the first rappel, which is where we make our next fatal mistake. There's this little tree that's sticking out, and there's this little tree that's sticking out. Oh, my computer's telling me I have to do something. Crazy. It's in my screen here. Okay. So there's this little tree that's sticking out of the side of the mountain. And we're supposed to take a piece of webbing, which is this nylon flat tube, and you tie it in a square knot. And we see them with climbers all the time. They sling them over their shoulders, and they put their carabiners on them, or they used to make harnesses out of them. We have webbing harnesses, because this is in the time period nobody was selling $300 harnesses. You had to make one out of webbing. So you're supposed to take the webbing and wrap it around the tree, and then put the rope to the webbing in order so that the rope doesn't stick on the tree or freeze to the tree. But Tim's like, I don't want to lose my money on this webbing. This webbing costs, I don't know what it was, a couple of bucks, $5, $10. I don't want to lose this piece of webbing, because what happens is then you pull down the rope and the webbing kind of floats away into the wind. So we decided, and I agreed. I was like, yeah, don't waste that money. Let's be conservative about the money. So we take the rope, we throw it around the tree instead of around the webbing, and we rappel down. And so Tim rappels first, and it's the kind of rappel where you bounce off the rock, and you bounce off the rock, or you bounce off the ice in this case. We have crampons on. And then at the bottom of it, there's this inverted overhang. So we come down kind of in the air down here, nowhere to bounce. And I come down, and I get to this next ledge, and it's the size of a super big shed out in your backyard, like a small garage. It's about that big, and it's maybe 3 feet of snow. And so we're up over our knees, and it's pretty clear to me immediately that I've lost my coordination. I've lost I'm like kind of falling in the snow. I walk in the snow all the time. But I'm not able to lift my feet up, and I'm not able to think where to put my foot down. And so I'm beginning to be confused, and I'm beginning to be loss of my coordination, and my face is freezing, and my eyes are starting to freeze. Everything cold is like fire. It feels like fire. So everything on me is burning, and I didn't even know my eyes could hurt. I didn't know that my eyes could be cold. I didn't know much about this.
I've never thought of that.
No, it's crazy.
No,
it's like it's. And not only that, we had a hard time talking. Speaking became difficult, not just because our brains were starting to freeze, which meant we were starting to get confused, but because our muscles weren't working. So we were going to like talking like this, you're not moving our jaw much because you can't really. And every time we spoke, I felt like I had this, like if I had a big meter on my chest, then I had a full electrical charge. And every time I spoke, my meter moved. So my meter moved down when I moved, but my meter moved down with everything I did. And speaking was one of those things. I would speak and I'd be exhausted. So we decided only talk minimally as necessary. So we get down to this ledge, and we're in this scene, and we're still trying to like get stronger emotionally, and we're bucking each other up. The moon comes up a little bit so we can see a little bit better. And I grab hold of the rope, one side of the rope, because it's a double rope, and I pull on one side, and it doesn't move. I'm like, I can't get it. And so Tim comes over, and he grabs hold of it with me. It's supposed to just be like this. You pull it and it slides down just like that. Nothing. So Tim and I hanging on this thing, both of us with all of our weight, does not budge. And we tried this for quite a while. So we don't know what to do. Now we're stuck. We don't have a rope. And so Tim decides he's got this very thin cord. It's like the cord is like this thin, but it's super strong, like really, really strong stuff. So he pulls out his cord and he cuts off 2 really long lengths, and he ties what's called a Priscic Hitch. So a hitch is a kind of a knot that works on friction and tension. So if you ever tie up a boat at a dock and you use a clove hitch, it works because the boat is always pulling on it, but it stays in place because the rope is layered over itself and there's friction that holds it. So he ties these specialized hitches, one on one rope and one on the other with this super skinny cord. And he makes these long loops so that he can actually put a foot in one of the bottoms of the loop and a foot in the other loop and hold on to the hitches. And the thing is, when you pull up on this hitch, it slides like butter. But when you pull down on it, it's more like a fork, just like that. So it stays in place. So he sets himself up with the loops. I take the rope and I wrap the end of it around myself in the snow, and I roll in the snow to make it as tight vertically as possible, trying to make this thing solid. Because now the plan is this: we're stuck. And Tim's like, I'm the lead climber. I'm the certified person. I'm the one who get us into this problem, which is only partly true because I'm the one who chose the axe instead of the hammer. I chose the hammer instead of trying to buy an axe. But he takes responsibility. He says, I'm gonna ascend. So he decides to go back up without any protection because there's this overhang. So I can't put him on belay. He's got to ascend back up the rope, risking his life. So I'm lying in the snow and my face is off to the side, and I can see with kind of one eye out into the mountain across the way, and the other eye's kind of in the snow. And I have a helmet on, I should let you know, and a hat and gloves. So he starts to climb up, and the whole thing's like, I can feel it jerking me around as he's going up. And he gets up some distance, I don't really know because I was looking at the snow, but like 15, 20 feet up or something like that. And maybe the jerking around, I don't really know what happened, but suddenly he says, falling, he yells, falling.
Oh my
God. And I'm like, oh my God. And as he falls, I I think, I don't know, that his foot must have stayed inside of that loop, and it yanked the rope free. So he falls 15 or 20 feet, but there's 3 or 4 feet of snow, and he sort of half lands on me on his side and half in the snow. And he's okay.
It's an amazing amount of discipline to be able to say the word falling, because I'm pretty sure another F word would come out of my mouth.
Oh, well, that's probably what everybody's thinking, but it's a training thing. So you train like so part of climbing is you have to train to say falling, because rock. These are these 2 most important, or ice. So if you say ice, that means a sheet of ice. You've chipped a sheet of ice loose and it's coming down all day long. So I almost never talk about this part of it. Almost all day long, he's shouting out ice, and a chunk of ice had come down, or a spray of ice. And one day, a year, I spent 30 days in the wilderness. I was backpacking at 14,000 feet, and a lightning storm blows up, and we are stuck on this high ridge line. We go over the edge, and we free climb down 2,000 feet. And as we're free climbing down, I'm standing on a ledge. My buddy had been stuck, another guy. He'd been stuck, and I'd been talking him through this because this is a crazy dangerous thing that we're doing. But there's lightning bolts flying all over the place. So I'm standing on this ledge, and he yells out, "Rock!" And I turn around, and I got my backpack on. I turn around, and a refrigerator-sized rock comes flying by, and it like I feel the wind go by my nose. Like this. If he had not shouted rock, it would have caught me square in the back and sent me out 2,000 feet.
Wow.
Gosh.
Yeah. So it would take me a lot of training to get those words right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You have to have them. And so everybody might be thinking that F word.
Do it here.
But you say falling instead. So he says fall. He shouts falling, which is what that earlier guy that day, early in the day, he yelled falling too. So Tim falls. He's okay. He lands in the snow. We get the rope, and as we stand up, we see a truck, or we don't know what it is actually. A pair of headlights come down the parkway, and it pulls into the parking lot across the street from us, and it turns around. And it stops there. And we're like, no cars all night. Oh my God, look at this. And so we're like, maybe he can see us. And we start jumping up and down and waving our arms, and he flashes his lights. And we're like, it's got to be the warden. We signed in. He's come look for us. I don't know what time it is. 11 o'clock at night. I have no idea. It's late. Okay. Yeah. And, so he flashes his light, and we jump up and down again. We're like, oh my God, somebody knows we're here. That's really what it was like. Oh, thank God. So,
yeah.
Oh, huge, because I found myself diving ever deeper inside myself, looking for the courage and the strength to continue. And what I found was this like mammalian deep inside the human brain, survive. And it was this driving force that carved willpower for me. It wasn't like I was willing myself into this. It was like this thing that rose up inside me that was willpower to survive. And so I'm being driven forward like an animal to survive, and not like an animal, as an animal. I am an animal, and all human beings are. So we're heartened by this, and we gather up our gear. I'm looking down. I'm looking at the gear in the snow in my mind. So we gather up on our gear, and we make this traverse, and we get over to this next rappel. And now we're off the ice in the snow, and we're on rock. And this thing kind of goes in this way, and then kind of turns out this way, and then makes a flat face. So it's kind of set back a little bit. And we get over to this setback a little bit. It's in the shadow a little bit, and there's an iron pin. And on the iron pin that's epoxied into the mountain is an iron ring. And you put your rope through that, and you rappel. So the rappels are set up. We climbed a route that was established, and we come down a route that's established. Mm-hmm. So Tim makes the rappel, right, and I make the rappel after him. And I come around a corner with the rope, and it's in my carabiner. I'm still on the rope, and he's off to my left, And there's another set of iron pins with rings epoxied into the mountain, but these have carabiners on them and straps like that webbing, and another carabiner so you can clip yourself in. So,
Okay.
so we're now safe, right?
Yep.
First time, not going to fall. And hypothermia keeps advancing. So this is through all of this, the hypothermia just keeps getting worse. So by the time I come around this corner, my feet are, I can't bend my toes. I can't feel my feet. So the fire is gone. And now I have no feeling at all, which is, it's a bad thing. Yeah. And so I can't bend my toes. I'm not thinking clearly. But I come around the corner and I look out to the warden, and the warden flashes his lights. He sees we're on this last rappel, 100, 150 feet up. He flashes his lights. We're like waving to him, and he drives off. He's going home. He had stayed there for 2 or 3 hours to take between that time to get to where we are. But he's like, we're like, yeah, last rappel. It's totally great. So we're going to make it down to the bottom. The tent's in the car. And I take the rope. I take one end of the rope and I tie it to myself in a knot. And I take the other end of the rope and I throw it out to the side. Like, so it's got to go around this corner, right? And up into this craggy space. I throw it out to the side and I grab hold of the rope and I give it a yank and it jams. Like, I don't even pull it 3 inches. Boom. And it's locked. I'm like, oh, and I yank even harder and it jams even tighter. And now we don't have a rope again because I can't go back up on a rope that's not only attached on one end because it's going to, so you can't reascend. And I told him, and now we've gone from relief to desperation. And I keep pulling on it. It doesn't go anywhere. We discuss, okay, I can untie it. I don't have a lot of slack. I can untie it. But if
it's gotta be scary at this point.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like, I don't even know how I was able to, I don't know how I was able to keep my head through all of this. I really don't. I was terrified, but I'm super focused. The thing about climbing is this. Climbing is it's sort of like meditation. Meditation is a practice of hyper focus. You drive your mind into one place. And that's what this was. Climbing is you become exactly where you are. You're not thinking about anything else. It's only exactly where you are and exactly what you're doing. Because if you make a mistake, it's a bad mistake. So it has this built-in natural sort of hyper focus to it. And so we're both still very hyper focused on exactly what's going on. And what's going on is that we now know that this is it. I can't get the rope. I have to keep yanking on the rope to try to get it free. But every moment that we're there, everything keeps getting worse. And he can't help. We talked about untying it and both of us pulling on it, but there wasn't enough slack. And also, if I took off my gloves, I had dropped the rope because to get it to him, I had to untie it. And so I was only me with the rope. And then hypothermia continued to get worse. And so I got warm and I unzipped my coat, which is, a lot of hypothermic deaths involve naked people. Why are they naked? Because
I wasn't aware of this. Do tell.
Yeah, so because the way it felt to me was that all of my blood rushed from my extremities, from my arms and my legs, into the essentials. I need my heart, I need my lungs, I need my brain. And I remember thinking, I don't need my hands. I can live without my feet. It feels good that the blood is coming. It's like crazy thoughts. I can live without my hands. But so the blood rushes in. The blood rushes in, and I get hot. And so I unzip my coat, and which is what you don't do. A person in their right mind knows that you don't do that. Tim's like, Peter, don't unzip your coat. I'm like, I don't know if I could swear on this show or not.
You can.
I'm like, oh, good to know.
Yeah, I probably.
Can I go back and add a bunch of?
Don't worry about it. Yeah, you can throw them all in.
All right. So Tim's like, don't unzip your coat. And I'm like, no way. I'm gonna. So I unzip my coat because I'm hot. And it's at that point I begin to think, I am not getting out of this because I have enough brain left to know what that means. And so this sort of peace suddenly begins to settle on me. I'm like, okay, this is the place where I die. This is how I go. The rope is stuck. I can't go down. I can't go up. The cold's going to get me. And so I remember turning and I looked out at this beautiful scene, this beautiful, beautiful moon and beautiful stars and beautiful ice-covered mountain that was reflecting with the moonlight. And I could hear the river. You can hear the Saskatchewan River right there. So there's river sound. And I was like, okay, I just give up. And I started thinking about my parents. And so the reason why I didn't want to go back to Boston is my family, like lots of families, we had a dysfunction in my family. My sister had run away when she was 14, but from our point of view, she had vanished for a long time, and it broke my family. And we're all good now, but it was at the time it was terrible, and I just didn't want to be in that mix. And so I remember thinking, God, they're going to lose 2 kids. And they, you know, and how can I do that to them? But I thought, what can I do? And so then I started thinking about God and like, oh, I'm going to die here. And meanwhile, I'm trying to pull in the rope. And then I began to fall asleep, and not like snuggle up in bed and close my eyes and count the sheep kind of sleep, but like somebody shuts off my light. Boom, it goes. I'm exhausted. I've been up for 24 hours. No food for most of it, exhausted, freezing to death. And so when I fall asleep, it's like out go the lights. Say what?
Your body was shutting down as well, and your brain. So, yeah,
physically shutting down.
You were physically shutting down.
So I collapse when I fall asleep. My body just shuts down, and I collapse and I smack on the rock. So I'm standing on rock, and so I wake up. And I stand back up again and I pull on the rope. And this happens 3 times, 5 times. I don't really know. And I stand back up this last time. And this last time I stand up and I'm pulling on the rope. And now I'm only sort of aware at this point of myself. I'm only like, Tim is sort of a shadow to me over here. I don't really, I know where I am. I know what's going on, but everything is sort of fuzzy to me. And as I'm standing there, you have this background behind you right now. It's like a tunnel of light. And on the periphery of it is darkness. And so there's this darkness that surrounds me suddenly. So there's like this white light, this beam of light, like a spotlight. And then there's peripheral darkness, but I'm not like looking into God at this point. It's just tunnel vision. And so I get tunnel vision, and it begins to close in on me in a circle really rapidly. And I remember like looking over this way and looking over this way and wondering, what is this thing? And it goes, and just like that, it's darkness. And I expect, because I'd been falling asleep, to collapse, just black out. But no, I don't black out. This light goes out and I'm still aware. But the difference is I'm not in pain anymore. I'm aware, but I'm aware that things don't hurt. And then as I'm aware of that, I remember thinking, the mountain is supposed to be in front of me because I'm facing the mountain. Even if I collapsed, the mountain was still in front of me, but I don't see the mountain. I see this darkness, and this darkness goes out. I don't know how far until there's like a star in the distance. Like I don't know, 7 billion light years away. There's this little one individual star light, and it pops into existence, and then it rushes toward me faster than the speed of light, covering this immense distance. And I can see the distance now. As it comes to me, the distance becomes really expansive, and it's expansive in all these different directions. And this entity rushes toward me and communicates to me telepathically without language. This is non-conceptual. It's no idea here. This is direct information that is not encoded. It is, I don't know how to even describe it. It's more like an experience than it is information. And it says to me,
does it speak to you in symbols, or just things that seem to mean something to you and you know?
No, it was everything. So everything that I say from this point on is in metaphor.
Okay.
And it has to be because, which is the history of mysticism all over the world. Every mystic, Rumi, Lao Tzu, Jesus, everybody talks in mystical language. Everybody talks in metaphor.
And if I can just ask you real quick too, you said that this was an entity that was rushing toward you. What did the entity look like?
It was, well, first it was light, but then it was intellect, and then it was comfort, and then it was power, and then it was joy, and then it was all these things all at once. And it was this, it didn't have shape or form. It is a no thing. It is not a thing. There's no molecules with it. There's no muons in it. There's no energy in it that, like electricity or electromagnetism for that matter. It is an energy of and in itself, indescribable. But it communicated to me telepathically, and it reached inside me. And it said, "I'm taking you." And I put up all of my willpower, all of this, strength that I found, this animal strength that I found through the night. Mm-hmm. It had no resistance at all. It was like reaching through air and just grabbed me and pulled me out. Wow. And now I'm inside this thing. And I'm inside this thing, and I have 2 points of view. I have the point of view of being inside this, and the point of view of seeing myself inside it. And it is like a big, huge ball, but it's not like a ball of, it's like I'm in nothingness. And so it is the only thing, even though it's not a thing, in this nothingness. And it is like energy, I guess, or like plasma. That's how I'll describe it. Like a plasma ball. And I'm inside of this plasma ball, and I'm comfortable. I have no agency anymore. I have no capacity to make choice. All my ability to choose is gone. And I'm inside of this thing, and I can see myself inside of it, and it's speaking to me. It's speaking power and intellect and love and comfort right into me. Like the plasma pervades me. And I still have like an astral self. So I still have some structure like Peter. I have a form. But I didn't differentiate at this point. I didn't know that this was not quite what I was going to become, but I still had a form, and I could see myself as a form from the outside. And I travel inside of this the same speed up and out. And I get to the edge of this void, this darkness. He carries, she carries, it carries, they carry. I don't know how to use a pronoun for this. This being of light carries me to this other dimension, and I sort of, it either becomes all of this nothingness, or it tosses me into it, because it seems to be both it and not it at the same time. This angel, this energy, this being of light, this plasma ball,
consciousness, yeah.
This consciousness is like a portion of this, or all of it, or both. I don't really know. But I suddenly am outside of it. It expels me into this nothingness. I am in nothingness, but this nothingness where there is no thingness. I'm not even a thing anymore. That astral self, it's gone. I am now a plasma ball. I am an energy ball of luminous consciousness, metaphor. But I'm contained. I'm contained, and I am large. I am so much larger.
You have self-awareness.
Oh yeah,
what you are. Yeah.
At this time, what are you feeling? I'm sorry.
I'm feeling bliss. I'm feeling this is me. This is me. How did I not know this was me? How did I forget this was me? I felt
almost like a revelation, like you just found yourself in your purest form all over again.
Exactly.
Emery Young says it's where we all meet.
Like that in.
Maybe.
So I become myself, and I remember myself. And I'm in an it used to be called, the mystics used to call it an ocean But an ocean now is way too small. We now know about galaxies and universes. I was in a universe times the universes times universes of immensity. And I am alone inside of this. It is nothing, no thingness, but it's also, I can see in it. So there's also illumination. And I can see in every direction at once. No direction I can't see in. And not just like on a plane seeing, but like like all these. I'm a sphere, and my sphere sees in all directions, and I see toward infinity, and I know that infinity is beyond my sight, but I can see further, and I have more capacities than I ever had when I was alive. I could think faster. I could understand faster. I could process information faster. There was no language in the way of my thinking. There was no brain to slow it down. There was no, my thinking was myself, was my feeling, was my seeing, was my experience. It was all integrated.
Pure will.
Yes. Just beingness. And so I'm in this space and I am content. I am content, and like a portal opens in front of me. This doorway, this waterfall, this opening, and it's fluid and it flows. It's pearlescent. It's every color and more colors, and it is only white light. It is all of these things at the same time, and I can see its surface, I can see its depth, and I can see through it to a longer tunnel. And so it is the most beautiful I have ever seen. And so with my beingness, I touch it. I take my energy self and I touch its energy. And as I touch its energy, the most beautiful that I'd ever experienced flows into me, and it fills me, and all this knowledge comes in. This is all life. This is the crystal river, the crystal waterfall of all life, and it is all life in all of the universe. It's not just all life on Earth. It's all life of all universes. It's all livingness, and it flows in and infills me, and all these things happen at once. And I should add here that this void that I'm in, this illuminated darkness, is in timelessness. There's no future. There's no past. It's always now, but it's also like all time is there. It's not just like, we used to think that time is linear, but now we know because of gravity, the time around a very large planet with a lot of gravity moves at a different rate than the time here on Earth. So time is like this wavy thing in our universe.
It certainly is, yes.
Yes, and so
topic we like to bring up.
Oh, you do?
We do,
yes.
And we think that they're on the other side, just as you're confirming for us that there is no time. The timelines are everything is at once. It's all
just
one.
All one.
It's all one. And so I tell what I say in a sequence of events with a chronology in language. And language is this ideas, are concepts that are put into like symbols and signs, and then we string them together in a line, in a sentence, and we try to conform reality to our thinking, but that's not at all what it is. And on the other side, it's more so no thought, more so no language, more so inability to contain it in any sort of language that it all expresses it in any way accurately. It's this experience of divine radiance. And so this divine radiance, it fills inside of me, and all these things happen at once. And I know that I'm known. I know that I'm self-evidently so in the presence of Creator, and I am creature. I am made of this entity, made by this entity. And I can't see this voice that's speaking to me, but it's like the whole space that I'm in, this whole universe upon universe is the divine self. I'm sort of like inside the ocean of the being of God. And it is all around me, and it's next to me in specific, speaking to me, and it shows me myself. It shows me myself and the origin of my beingness, of the birth of my soul, of the breathing into the breathing out of my consciousness in its origin. And I see that my origin is ageless and also lived many lives and is much larger than any life I ever lived, and is like a single photon of one superpositioned photon that is both of the divine and also individuated from the divine, part of unlimitedness, but made limited and absolutely known, completely. There's nothing of me that is not known. And I see all these other lives, and I enter into one or two of them sort of to look around. And I don't know that they were human. I don't know where they were. And they were all simultaneous from my point of view. The length of my life of my soul is eons old in time. And the lives that I've lived, including this one, are little teeny tiny compared to my soul. It's like
fragments, or
yeah, it's like putting a little bit of sparkle in a jar, and you shake it up, and you can see the little sparkles.
Glitter, yeah.
Glitter. Thank you. 99% of that's water, and only 1% of it's glitter. But all these lives were so, they somehow interacted with the soul, but the soul, my consciousness, was so much greater than them.
Just to kind of restate what you just said, you kind of had the sense that you had lived many lives, and they were the flakes of glitter, and this was just the existence of your soul since the beginning of, I don't want to use the word time, but time, right? Just so we can understand it, because we don't have all the words that we need, I think, to describe this properly.
Yes. Well restated. So I see this of myself. I see that I have all these other lives, but yet I'm still somehow also attached to my Peterness. And this Peterness part of me, and like I said, there's no sequence to this. This all happens all at once. And so this Peterness part of me, I've brought with me into this afterlife part of myself. And the part of myself that I brought into this afterlife was all the pain that I gave everyone in my life, all my attachments. And so my life review was to suffer all the pain that I gave away in my life up to that point. Not like the pain, I'll tell you exactly what it was like. It was the pain of the people that I gave them from the inside of their experience. So I was inside of them, feeling their chemical rush and their emotional reaction to whatever it was I was doing to them. And I was also simultaneously inside of me doing it to them. Wow. And it was every single time that this happened in my life, from birth on, all the intended ones and all the unintended ones. And the unintended ones, they're different than the intended ones because I didn't mean any malice, but I felt their pain. So sometimes people want to know how does the Akashic records work? What's the book of life? Okay. The divine is living my life with me now. As I live my life, the divine gets the data. Only it's not data, it's experience. So I'm inside my sister, say for instance, feeling her emotions as I give her the pain that I was intending to hurt her because she's my
simultaneously.
Sister.
Yeah, this is
simultaneously. But where's the record of my sister's suffering? But in the divine itself. No, so the divine becomes this connection place for me where I experience my pain. I mean, my decisions to cause pain. I experience the pain inside of these people that I gave it to from their point of view. Only it's not at all what I thought it was. I experienced their pain. It's like 10,000 times larger than what I had ever intended to give them. And it's mine. I give them this pain, but really, I'm giving it to me. And like in Christmas Carol, and I'd love to use this because Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, if there is a near-death experience book that everybody has seen in a film or read, it's this one, and nobody realizes that's really what's going on there.
I was just going to mention that book. Yeah.
Were you?
I was. It was on the tip of my tongue, like, oh, Christmas Carol.
Yeah, well, it's the chains I forged in life, and
right.
They were the,
like the karmic
attachment
does come into effect, but you see it here, and you just observe, and you have these extraordinary senses that you didn't have in the living life, where you're able to experience all these things at one time and understand them. It's fascinating.
Yes, painfully understand them in this case.
Wow.
And as I'm experiencing all of this in sequence, I also hear inside of me and around me, surrounding me, I love you. I know you. I've always known you. And when I say I've always known you, I was naked. I was transparently naked in front of the light. There was no darkness in me at all. Everything of my life as Peter was illuminated. There was every memory, every breath, everything was illuminated. Everything was present. And the voice was saying, I know you, I made you. It shows me my origin. It shows me my other lives. It shows me the length of my soul. It speaks love to me. It speaks forgiveness to me. And as I begin to hear it, as I begin to listen to it with the ear of my consciousness, I have this understanding that all of the love that I had ever given away in my life, and all of the love that I had ever collected in my life, was what was allowing me to hear the love that was being spoken to me. And I could, as I began to hear the love being spoken to me, I could suddenly see, I remember I went through this period of, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of what I had done, and I was guilty of what I had done. And it was obviously so, but I wasn't ashamed or guilty because what I did was evil or bad, but because of the unlimited nature of goodness, of light and love that was surrounding me. My comparison suddenly became, and the divine showed this to me, my comparison became all of humanity, all of the suffering that human beings give to each other. And there was no greater suffering or greater wound than any other wound. I was so far away. It's like being on the moon. And when you look at the earth from the moon, not that I've ever been there, but I've seen it in pictures. When you look at the earth from the moon, you can't see the Himalayas. You can't see the continents. Well, you can, but everything is one level. Everything is smooth. It's one round ball. And that's the way I saw all of the suffering of all of humanity giving to each other. There was no differentiation. My sin, my bad karma was no better or worse than anybody else's, because that's the way the whole thing is made. The entire universe, everything in it, I could see that my suffering, there was this great equality of giving pain to each other in human life, no greater, no lesser, because everything eats everything else. Bacteria eat bacteria. Eagles eat fish, black holes eat star systems. Everything consumes in this universe. There is no way not to do that. There's no way not to cause harm. And when the rattlesnake bites the coyote, and the coyote's like, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. And the rattlesnake's like, dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
And when the coyote kills the groundhog's like, the worst thing that ever happened to me. But and so there's this great equality, and I could see this great equality, which meant that I was feeling shame and guilt, but it wasn't my fault that I was made this way. I'm living inside of this matrix where the code makes me be who I am. And some of that's genetics, and some of that's environment, and some of that's upbringing, but the whole thing is made that way.
Oh, we so agree with you.
We're
so on the same page with this.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of Anubis with the scales, but You know, you've got the heart and the feather, except
Yes.
it's always going to be a balance. It's not going to go one
Right.
way or another.
Yeah,
It just
exactly.
shows you
Anubis.
how.
I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that feather. Um,
Right.
so, because that's what happened to me. So I begin to listen with the ear of my heart to the sound of love that is this forgiveness. It's, I forgive you. I love you. I've always known you. I love you as you are in all of the pain that you caused. I love you in all of that. I love you because I made you, because you're my creature, because you're part of me, because you are light from light. And as I begin to listen, I turn, like I reorient toward the light. And as I reorient toward the light, I listen. It infills me with itself. And I expand. I get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm filled with more and more love and forgiveness and mercy and awe and adoration, knowledge, understanding, bliss, paradise, healing, wholeness, love, beauty, joy, ecstasy. It's like the greatest orgasm times a septillion. There's just beauty, and I am huge. I blow up like a balloon of radiance, and I become this light. I am this light that's flowing into me. I am this thing. I am all of this thing. I am not infinity, though. I can still see out into that infinity is beyond me, but I am in a oneness state with this. There is so little left of me that I become this radiant beauty that is vibrating in me, just this huge frequency of this. And then I sort of collapse back down again. And now I'm back down, and I've got some Peter about me. I'm still an orb of consciousness, but I have a relationship to this. And I say to the divine, I can't go now. Why? It says to me, I say, because my parents are suffering. I see their suffering. I know they're suffering for the loss of my sister. If I die, it's going to be so much worse for them. And as soon as I communicate, this is telepathic, okay? I don't, right? As soon as I say that, I get swept across the body of the divine, heaven, this void, this illuminated space. I get swept across it to this edge where heaven, it's like the Higgs boson field begins, where energy becomes matter. And my consciousness is stuck outside a little bit. I'm still, all of me is inside, but this little tiny part of me is looking out into the universe. And I'm shown all of this universe. I see all of this universe and all of the galaxies. And my vision gets shrunk down and swept down to our galaxy, to our stars. It all happens like that. And I see down to our star system. I see Earth, and Earth is like this hologram, but it's solid and it's real and it's real time. And I can see every single human being, 7 billion people, all at once, not like, oh, there's that one and there's that one, but all at once. I take it all in, and I see inside them, and inside of every one of them is gold. And the gold is like a gold fleck shining, just illuminated, all these gold flecks. And they're in war, they're having babies, they're killing people, they're having dinner, they're making love. It's everything humans are doing at this time. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing all of them all at once. And they're all made in their core of this light, which is the same as I'm in. Only where I am, it's times a bazillion septillion in intensity. But Earth is underneath the foam, and it's underneath this foam, and the foam is between all these people, and nobody can see the light like I can see it inside them. Nobody knows that they are beloved like I know that I am beloved. I'm like the prodigal child. I am the most loved there is in my presence of the divine, but I see that is true for every single human being. It's this paradox of particularity of I'm particularly beloved, the most beloved, but so is everybody else. And as I see this, this rush comes to me, like this huge wave that is the size of the universe. It's a universal wave that goes deeper and deeper into infinity in its love, and it sweeps through me and it infills me. And the voice says to me, in the way that I love you now know that I have always loved you, and that all is well, was well, and will be well because of my goodness, because of my love in this universal space of oneness of being. This is where the truth is, with a capital T. I am the truth. I am the love. I am the maker of all, and you are well and safe and always have been, because my love is infinite. And this is true for every person. And because it's true for every person, your parents are going to be fine. And I can see their faces in particular, and I can see their suffering in real time. I see their suffering, and I see them side by side, and I see the length of their remaining life without me. And I see the depth of their suffering, and I see the length of the remaining life with me, and I see a lesser level of suffering. But in the end of it, in the end of both, they are both, my parents, are also in this well-being. So I can see their future. I can see their well-being in the same place that I am, knowing that I am beloved, knowing that nothing can ever hurt me, knowing that I am always made of love and light, knowing that I am always safe. And I see the difference between them. The life of with me and the life without me. And this rush of love. And the voice keeps saying to me, come home now. Time for you to come home. They're going to be fine. Come on home. They're going to be here in a wink of an eye. The length of the human life is that fast. It doesn't feel like that here, but it's that fast. And in that amount of time on earth, they're going to be here. And I said, well, I've got another commitment. I made a promise. I was leaving on this theater tour. And we had been in rehearsal for 9 months, and it is a theater for the deaf. And it was a national tour. It was 24,000 miles, 64 shows all over the Western United States, based out of Montana State University. And we're leaving in 2 weeks. And the director, dear Jack, oh, I love this guy. We're still in touch. He says, he actually grabbed me by the collar and said, you're doing what on vacation? What, are you out of your mind? If you get hurt, we can't fix it. There's no understudy for anybody here. And you promise me you're going to come back. So I promised him, and I said, I promised. And I got no reply from the voice. And I said, well, I still haven't gone all the way into you yet. I'm still kind of here in the doorstep. And do I have to go home with you? And the voice said, no, you don't have to. Well, can I go back to my life? And the voice said, you won't go back to your life. I said, well, I choose my life. Said, you're not going back to your life. Flicks me out like a little pebble. Pow. And I shoot out. And as I shoot out, I like put on my astral self that kind of forms around me as I travel. And I'm being in, but the divine, I'm still in heaven. Okay. There's like this heaven is this huge place. And I'm kind of sort of filtering down closer to this dimensionality. And as I run through this filter, the divine is completely still with me and in me. And I see in front of me, as I'm like super astral self flying with head first toward all these openings. On all these openings, they're like caves, or the end of, I describe it as a cable on a bridge, where they wind together these thin cables into these huge cables. And it's like each one of those butt ends of the cable is an entry point back into my physical life. And they're all choices. And I can see all of their probabilities. And each one of is an individual probability. And there's like 1 million of them. And in the middle of this million, taking up most of the space, is white light, like a huge laser beam of white light. And the voice says to me, choose. But it also says to me, pick the light. And I'm like, choose. And I have a split second to choose. And I think to myself, I want to be myself. I want to be a writer. I want to be a bohemian. I want to I want to live a sort of a dissolute life if I can. I want to have fun. I want some hedonism. I want creativity. I want all these things. I want a little bit of me. But the light is so powerful that I choose close. I choose in close to the light beam, but not the beam itself. And as this laser light beam, it diffuses through all of these entry points till it becomes dark on the outer edge. But there's still light going into it. There's always light. But the closer I was to the center, the more light I would become. And I chose sort of off to the side, not quite in the light, but not far away. And I enter in a split second, and the next thing I know, I'm being crushed down, like a balloon put in liquid nitrogen, right down, and I get crushed.
Gaining a mass like that Higgs boson particle, right?
Yeah.
Right. I exactly what's going on. I'm taking on mass, and I felt like I became so small that it felt like I right after this happened, I used to think of it as like, it felt like someone had, I entered into one of those ice screws. So an ice screw is hollow. It's like an Archimedes screw on the bottom with points, but it's also hollow, so that the ice, as you screw it in, the ice kind of cuts. Yes. And so I felt like I was being screwed into my heart. And it was this very painful entry back into this body. But I didn't know what this was. My first sensation was pain, suffering. And I didn't understand where I was or what was going on. I was back inside, but I didn't know I was back. I didn't even know what it was. I was in suffering from head to toe and full of pain. It was like suddenly somebody switched on the electric charge, and this just was like, ah. And as my brain came back online, I started to like feel things and hear sounds, and I started feeling motion and this sound, and I don't understand what's going on, and this thing, I'm being moved, and I open my eyes and I begin to hear, and Tim's got me by, he's grabbed hold of me, and he's dragging me, he's shaking me. He's like, and I begin to understand. He's like, you are dead. You are dead. He's looking in my face. He's really up close. You are dead. You are dead. If you died, I was going to die. And he's crying, and he's in a panic. And, cause that, you know, I die, he dies. And he helps me back. Okay, I thought you were dead. You were dead. I thought you were dead. And I have no idea who he is. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that I'm somewhere where I'm not supposed to be.
Wow. That's trippy.
It just became, well, I don't want to skip ahead. So my brain comes back online. I begin to understand him. I know who he is. He explains to me what's going on. He's like, you got the rope, pull on the rope. You know, and he's like showing me the rope. There's the rope, pull on the rope. So I pull on the rope, and the rope comes free, like a miracle. Or maybe it's because the way I felt, I don't know. But the rope comes free. I pull the rope down. He's like, pull the rope down. Now he's helping me because there's plenty of slack. And we get the rope, and he puts it in there's another epoxied ring, pin with a ring, and he puts it through that. And we talk about it, and he clips in, and he descends down. And when he gets down, I clip in and I descend down. And now we're down at the bottom, and the car's just across the street in the parking lot. But also I'm back enough to know, okay, wait a minute. We can't just go. He's like, let's go get in the car and turn the heater on. I'm like, no, let's go to the car. Let's get the tent. We can't turn the heater on. We got to warm ourselves up slowly, or it's going to kill us. So we get the tent, and we set up the tent, and it's got a chimney. It's a very, Tim was a wealthy person, comes from a wealthy family. He's got a chimney and it's got a vent on the bottom. It's the nicest tent I've ever been in. And so you can fire up your stove inside the tent. It's like a tent for the Arctic. So you won't asphyxiate. It's got a draft. So we fire up the stove. I think we fired up both stoves. We both had stoves. So we fire up stoves inside the tent. We put tea water on. We get inside our sleep. We strip out of our clothes. We get inside our sleeping bags. We sip tea. We eat a little bit, and we bring our body temperature back up. And when we get warm enough, we go in the car and we turn on the car and we sit in the car. And now it's sometime after sunup, and we're out and we're on the road. We left all our gear over on the side of the road, so we pulled the car around. We're loading up the car. Nobody else is there. It's early enough that it's just sunup, and the warden truck pulls up, and he gets out, and we're looking at each other like, oh, it's the warden, and the warden says, "So are you the boys who were on the cliff last night?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He says, "Well, I was coming down to see if I had to requisition the helicopter to collect your bodies."
Oh my goodness.
We're like,
almost.
Yeah, we know how serious it is.
You should have stayed, dude, you know, help us out a little.
Yeah.
So we get in the car and we drive off, and I'm a wreck. I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm up above myself, looking into myself, living inside this thing. And I am just like wide-eyed. What is this place? Where am I? And it is ugly to me. You know, we began our talk today. I was like, oh, the Ice Fields Parkway, most beautiful place in the world. Ugly to me in comparison to this beauty that's still living inside me. And I don't know, I know where I was, but I don't know what it was. There's no language. I'm now back inside my head. I have this memory of this experience. This experience is still living in me. And now I'm also outside of myself, looking through myself. And I am just, plus of all the trauma, on top of it all the trauma. So
I was just going to ask you, weren't both you?
Oh, yeah. I got blisters. I got blisters. Yeah. And oh, yeah.
Did you go to the hospital? Did you travel right there? Or?
No, I didn't.
You're a guy.
I don't know. You know, it's 21. What can I say?
And that too.
I don't know. I don't know. I was embarrassed. You know, we were chastened. We were chastened by the warden. Like, you're gonna fuck up my day. I have to go get the helicopter, and I got to face dead bodies, because you were irresponsible. And like, so we drive and we get down to Calgary. And we go, because we're really hungry. We go and we get some pizza, and I have to eat this pizza. We're in this like electric neon pizza place with formica everywhere, and everything is fake to me. Everything is fake. The sound is fake. The floor is fake. The building is fake. Tim's fake. I'm fake. The car is fake. The food, I have to eat pizza. I was energized when I was dead. I needed nothing.
It's like a heavenly hangover.
I had a heavenly hangover.
Yeah, right.
Like that.
I've
gone to source. I've seen it all. Now I'm trying to wrap my mind around a pizza joint.
And to put something in my mouth and to chew it to feed this. So now it feels to me like I'm living in a biological robot. I am like a program inside this thing. And I know that I'm a program. And I know that so I'm like an app downloaded into the machine, and I know that my consciousness is in the cloud, but I don't know what the cloud is anymore, because I've got a brain, and the brain is now trying to process the thing that is beyond language. And so I've got this confusion going this way, and I've got this confusion going this way.
Wow.
So we're driving down the road, and I fall asleep, and I wake up, and I'm like, Tim, there's a car in the lane in front of us, like headed toward us. He's like, no, there's not. Like, yeah, man, you're in the wrong lane. Yeah, no, I'm not. No, man, you are in the wrong lane. At the last second, he swerves over. He was in the wrong lane. We nearly had this head-on collision. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
It would have been really unfortunate after
all that.
Everything you've been through.
You don't just wait.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So the thing is that his dad bought him this car, this brand new Toyota or something. His dad bought him this car, and he said, nobody drives this car but you, Tim. And he's like, Peter, you can't drive the car. I can't let you drive the car. I'll have to tell my dad, because I'm honest. I'm going to tell my dad if you drive the car, and I can't let you do that. I was like, but I was asleep, and you're exhausted. He's like, no, I'm fine. So I fall back asleep again. And the next thing I hear are sirens. I hear sirens. We're slowing down. I wake up. I'm like, what's going on? And I see that we're in a little tiny town, and there are flashing lights around us. And the next thing I know, there's a Mountie at the door, at the window, knocking on the window. And he says, you're speeding. I'm going to give you a ticket. Oh, you're Americans? You have to pay your ticket now, because Americans, we give them tickets and they just drive across the border. So you have to pay your ticket now. We're like, no, we don't have any money for that. He's like, okay, you're arrested. So he puts us in his car, and we get in jail. He throws us in a jail cell, and he locks us in, and there's another Monty there. And we're like, oh my God, we're in this freaking jail. And, we got bubbles on our fingertips. And
meanwhile, you're all like,
right. And I don't even know what's going on. So, but we had stashed some money in our boots, because when you travel, I don't know if you've traveled, you hide money. So we had stashed a bunch of money in the boots. And, we had opened up the wallets, and we're like, but we only have this much money, officer. Which was a total lie. And so we decided that we were only going to get out of this if we paid the fine. So we pulled out the money out of our boots, and we gave it to them, and they let us out, and they brought us back to the car, and they put us in the car, and they drive away. And I fall back asleep, and I wake up again sometime later, and it's night. And this is all during the night. Okay. It's nighttime. And, I wake up, and, because the sun goes down at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock. I can't remember. It's not like 11 at night. So I wake up, and there's another set of headlights in our lane. And I'm like, Tim, there's a car coming at us. He's like, no, there's not. I'm like, yeah, there is. And because he's not listening to me, we're doing like 65 or 70. I reach over in my delirium and grab the wheel and yank it just like that. And now it turns out we weren't in the wrong lane. Turns out that there was a vehicle in front of us, but it was going in the other, it was going with us. And so now the car, we're doing 70. And now we're like up on two wheels in the gravel, and Tim pulls the wheel back this way, and we go off, and there's an 18-wheeler right in front of us now. So meanwhile, time slows down. There's cassette tapes and pens and, little things flying through the air, and everything's going super slow. And I have another life review, but this life review is like a movie. I see from the moment of my birth. I open my eyes, and there I am in the with my mom, and right down to the moment I'm in. It's just like a movie. Everything right there in front of me. And we missed the front end of the semi by like 6 inches or so. We're like, whoa! But now we're back on two wheels over this way, and we come back this way, and underneath the flatbed into the rear wheels, kablam! And we're coming at this angle. So the hood is like underneath Tim's face is like this far from where the steel stopped, and he never hits it. But we're all bruised up now, and the car is totaled, and wow. Tim is totally freaked out at me. And there was also screeching because the truck locks up its brakes. There's this loud noises, and there's the horn going. He's leaning on the horn, and we get out of the car, and we're not really hurt. And this truck driver, he's super like scared and mad at us and scared for us all at the same time. And he's yelling at us, and suddenly there's a Mountie there. And we're blocking the highway. The car it's a 2-lane road, and we're blocking the highway. So we have to push the car off the highway. And when we push the car off the highway, I have one little scar, and I don't even know if you can see it. There's a scar right there. I cut my palm open when I barehanded shoved my hands on the broken car and to shove it off the road, as the Mountie said. And now, we're in the middle of nowhere. The car is wrecked. Tim is really angry at me. And we don't know what to do. So I say to the Mountie, can we just camp on the side of the road here tonight, and we'll hitchhike tomorrow? Actually, what I say is, can we? And now I've got a stutter. And so I stutter my way through this conversation with him. And he's like, no, you can't stay. It's illegal. I'm not going to let you camp here. I don't know what you're going to do, but you can't camp here. And we're, like crying now. And he's like, all right, get your stuff. Come with me. So we get everything out of the car, everything. We strip everything out of the car, like the glove box. We take everything that's in the car. And he drives us
home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So he takes us to this hotel, and I don't. It's like an inn, maybe. It's kind of vague in my memory. There's a fireplace and a front desk and some seats, and he's like, "Hey, Joe." He knows the guy behind the counter. "Hey, Joe, these guys, they've got no money, but can you let them stay here for the night?" And he's like, "I'm not going to give them a room for nothing." And he's like, "But they're, gives them our sob story." And he finally convinces the desk guy, or maybe he's the manager, or he's the owner, I don't really know, to let us sleep in front of the fireplace in the lobby for a few hours and be out before dawn. And so this is what we do. And Tim is super mad at me because he's also gone through trauma. So we're both emotionally like crazy. So the next day, we decide that we had enough money between us that Tim was going to take a bus. He's going to take all the stuff from his car and take the skis, because we still have our cross-country skis. And he's going to take a bus back to Bozeman, and I'm going to hitchhike. So we get him on a bus, and I make a sign, says Bozeman, Montana. And I take my backpack, and I bring the crampons and some of the ropes and things that I can carry. And I stand out at around dawn and begin to hitchhike back to Bozeman. And inside of me, there's this constant roaring, like Niagara Falls roaring inside of me, and it's speaking my. Oh, I didn't tell you this. When I saw the origin of myself, I heard the name of myself. It's like the Yahwist name with Yahwist. There's no vowels in that word. It's the it's the tetragrammaton, the hovie, it's the name that you're right. So so I have this name that's unpronounceable by me, by human tongue. And that name spoke me into being. And I hear that inside of me. I hear my name inside of me. I hear the divine roar inside of me, and it's communicating to me. It's speaking to me, and it's saying to me, messenger, bring my message. And I'm like, fuck you. This is the ugliest place. I can't believe that I chose to come back here. I was so angry. I was so like, you tricked me. You didn't tell me. I didn't you never showed me the fine print of the contract that it was going to be this.
Right.
Well, he said you weren't going to go back really to your life.
Yeah, well, it took me close to 30 years to figure that out. And so the voice is like, speak about this, but there's no language for this. I'm like, how do you talk about what there's no language for this?
Right.
Figure it out, it says. Figure it out. But it's this constant thing. It's not like this one conversation. It's like always going on. And I'm looking around and this beautiful, beautiful sunrise, beautiful colors of the stars and the skies and all this kind of stuff. The stars are fading, the light's coming up, and it's ugly to me. It's like living in a two-dimensional cartoon. And so then I hitchhike back to Bozeman, and long story short, that was a long story. The long story of my life is that I became a completely different person. I came back with a new identity. And I had to, and this is back in 1980, when near-death experience wasn't really known. Mm-hmm. Raymond Moody had come out with his book, but I didn't encounter it until 86, which is when I learned what I was. I'm like, oh my God, this is me. But I decided I knew enough. I'd had enough exposure to the transcendentalists of New England, from New England, and I'd read Thoreau and Emerson, right? So I knew enough of the transcendentalists to take a class when I was back at UMass Amherst called Mysticism East and West. And so I got to explore Lao Tzu and Buddha and a whole bunch of other material through this whole semester. And I realized that as alone as I felt, I decided, oh, by the way, when the divine said, speak, I said, F you, and I buttoned my lip. I'm like, I'm never talking about this. It's impossible to talk about, and I'm never talking about it.
And didn't seem to be what the job you signed up for.
I did not sign up for this. I was going to be an architect. I was going to go in the family business. I was an English major, but I was also artistic, and I was going to, and you know, and I spatial and all this kind of stuff. And I was
sure,
but no, that's not what happened.
There's some questions out there, and
yeah, sure, I'll stop.
Trying to touch on one of them. Bob Burnell asked, Peter, were you religious prior to your experience?
Yes, I was, but I was also I had my first mystical experience when I was 5. And I was taken into the divine presence. It's a much longer tale. But it turns out that in hindsight, I can see that I was set up for this. Yeah, I was set up for this. And if I had been able to see the signs ahead of time, I would have known, but I couldn't. So yes, I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic high school, and Greek Orthodox, mixed family, raised in both churches. They hated each other. The churches like historically hate each other. And so, and wars and that kind of thing. So I grew up, even though religious, I knew that, you know, this church say they have the full truth, and this church say they have the full truth. Well, they can't both be right. But what happened in my NDE is that all of my beliefs were gone. I came back with no beliefs. I am not a religious person. I do not have any faith. I am not a believer. I do not believe. I have not believed from the moment I came back. I know that I'm known by the knower. I know where I'm from. I know that I'm incarnate. I know I am consciousness. I know I'm going to go home again. And so I have no reason to try to convince anybody of that. Whoa.
Well,
I just saw that.
The light has said you're saying too much.
Oh my.
Don't go in it.
Just stay right there.
We're not doing that. Don't go in the light.
Okay, so one of the after effects of near-death experience is electromagnetic craziness.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just going to say, for the people that are listening to this on audio and didn't actually see that event, the lights above you just all turned on at once.
It would look like one big beam of light, like he was talking about.
We thought we were going to lose you to the light.
Yeah. So
what happened just there? But.
So one of the it's a well-known after effect of near-death experience that we interfere with electromagnetic devices.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that happens to me sometimes. It's always a shock. So
see, this is where I see the tie-in between like alien abduction phenomena, certain haunted phenomena, and near-death experience phenomena. It's like once you've gone to that other side enough, it's like you almost take something back with you. And
you do.
Or you develop abilities that you didn't have prior to those experiences and those sort of things.
That's exactly what my life has been like. And I don't even know what we were talking about a moment ago. I was so stunned by the light there.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, yeah, it was a question on religion. It was a question on religion.
Yeah.
We see a lot of stuff on here. That was pretty cool.
I was like, what the heck? I know that I'm known by the knower. I know that I'm not religious. I work in religion. I chose to work in religion. I'm an ordained pastor. I'm not really active anymore, but not in the church anyway. But I decided, because I know that I'm known, and that there's no language for this, that I needed to figure out a way to conceptualize all of this so that I could think about it and I could understand it. And maybe I could find some tools to meditate. And so another thing that happened when I was back at UMass Amherst, where I was an undergrad, I took this mime class. I'd been studying mime. I'd been doing theater. And so there's a guy who was teaching mime at the university, and he was in Marcel Marceau's school, like the school of Marcel Marceau. And Marcel Marceau taught Hatha Yoga as part of mime technique. And so Jody, my teacher, taught us Hatha Yoga. And in the middle of teaching us Hatha Yoga, he had us search for our chi one day. Find your chi, feel your prana, feel your energy. And it was like, oh yeah, it's right here in my palm. Like, okay, this energy that I didn't know existed before is like all around me, and I can feel it. And so I combined my centering prayer meditation life with Hatha Yoga and Autobiography of a Yogi, Kriya Yoga, with Paramahansa Yogananda, and the Yoga Sutras, the Pantajali. So because of this class, that I took, I was exposed to all this material. And so I just dove into it and I read and read and read it. And so I began an interior life. So I begin this interior life, even though I'm pissed at God, I realize and understand that the only reality that I have is this other world. I have to have this other world. So even though I'm angry, I still pursue it with the whole of my being. And I go off to divinity school to study mysticism. I went to Yale to study mysticism because I needed to, not that they taught it there, they had classes, but no degree in this. So I had the dean of one of the deans, the dean of students, became my mentor for 3 years. And so I worked really closely with her. I never told anybody, by the way. I kept this a secret for 20 years. And so I'm practicing all these meditation things and yoga things. And she hired another professor to teach just me. And I study contemplation. I study mysticism. I get a working knowledge of all this stuff. And then at one point she says to me, I know you want to go on and become a professor of and study mysticism. I wanted to study intersection of Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. That was my goal. And she was like, I think you really should try the church first. You got so much compassion, Peter. I think you'd be good in the church. I think the church needs you. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. So that's how I ended up doing what I do. I ended up working in the church. I am a non-believer and I worked in the church for 20 years and through religion for my whole career. But I am not a religious person. My dearest friends call me the irreverend.
Irreverend. Oh, I love that. That is great.
Wow.
Just another comment that was out there in the audience. Natalie Mosley says, there's a theory that the universe is like an electrical plasma rather than a void. It's curious that you use that word plasma. Fascinating.
Well, there's this energy in this universe that pervades all that there is. So some near-death experiencer, I can't think who it is, said the universe secretly is made of love. And that Higgs boson field, there's this underlying, the 0 point energy is one of the names, and I think it's in physics, 0 point energy. It's the origin of all that there is, and that is this energy that is in everything that there is. So another one of the side effects I came back with is that I see light everywhere. I see everybody's got an aura. I don't see colors. I see a 1-inch shimmer around every single person that I meet. Every dog, every tree, every flower, everything's got this thing. Some more intense than others. And I don't just see it with my eyes. I see it with myself. Like my hearing, my heart, my feeling, my seeing, it's all one sense. And so when it comes to this light and it's just this radiance that pervades everything, and it's like an energy field, it's like a plasma field, and it has a containment in a plasma field and a tomac fusion. They're building these fusion machines that are all over the news now. They use electromagnetics to hold the fusion in place, to hold the plasma in place. That's sort of like what the universe is. The universe is this. It's made up of this plasma that pervades all things, held in sort of this structure by this other force, by the divine force that makes matter. But it's not really matter. It's really divine love. And I see this love is the opposite of ego, and it is exactly that. And so there's this other thing that happens when a person enters into a state of union with the divine, is that one sees one ego for what it is, which is nothing, and the divine as everything. And so there's this when I talk about healing and love and beauty and charity and goodness and joy and bliss and orgasm and all these things, humility is among them, and all of them are love. They're all facets of this one universal divine being, greater than the universe, capital U on that. And in this world, all of those aspects of love become fragmentized. And so we experience joy, which feels a lot like tears sometimes, and it feels a lot like love sometimes. And generosity can feel a lot like kindness sometimes, and kindness can feel a lot like compassion. And all these things, they're all one thing. And this energy field that pervades everything that there is, there's even more to it than exists here. the size of the universe, this plasma energy that's underneath everything that there is this is tiny compared to the infinite. It's just an aspect of the infinite. And this is the problem that we face in religion, is that religion takes mystical experience of the founder and codifies it and doctrinizes it and creates a system for people to understand it, and then this rigidity becomes the religion instead of the divine experience. And one of the I know I'm jumping all over the place here. One of the great things about Zen Buddhism is that there are no scriptures in Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism is about the experience itself. Mysticism is always and only about the experience itself. It's never about the definition of it. It's never about the concepts of it. It's never about the communication of it. It's the subjective experience of the divine presence inside of us. And so many people have it. I bet you two do. I bet you've had it. And the reason why I say that is because, like, 48% of the population, according to a study that I read last year by Marjorie Woolacott at the International Association for Near-Death Studies, 48% of the population have had a visitation from the dead, a communication from the dead. Somebody dies, they're in grief. This representation of their loved one, who is their loved one and more than their loved one, comes to visit them and telepathically communicates, "I'm good. I love you. All's well. I'm not really dead. Heaven is real." Whatever the message is, it's always love, and it's never in language. It's always a data download dump of just like, wow, and never explicable, can never talk about it, can never explain it. That's a mystical experience, and it changes their grief experience. They still miss their loved one, but now they know that one has not really died.
That they persist on.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a driving factor for Kristen and I's involvement in this to begin with. But it's very interesting that you mentioned these things. It's almost like being in the world as we know it, this planet Earth, and dealing with our own matrix lives, whatever they may be, is almost like a simulation theory to what's actually really there.
It is sort of like that, only it's better than that too. It's
meaning this life is like the simulation, but when you're out of here, you're going into a much bigger, almost like form of consciousness. I almost feel like we get like a little bit of it or something. And
I get
tiny reflection of God or the source or whatever you want to call it.
Here now.
Right.
Yes.
We do. Through the, Islam has 70,000 veils. Through the 70,000 veils, 40,000 of them are thick and 30,000 of them are more sheer. And so there's this great density, but you still can see through it. There's still glimpses of light here. And the reason why I was like the simulation theory, because heaven is like a simulation too. So there's these levels. There's like this. The deeper one goes into the divine self, the less self is present, the less simulation is there, the more purity is present. So it's not just like this place has some level of coding to it. It's like even heaven does too. So there are people who, when they die, they go to this hypercorporeality place where there are millions of more colors than they've ever existed here. There's frequencies that don't exist here. That is and there are people who go to like the Galactic Council or the Council of 12. There's all these different experiences. All of them are sort of like levels or heavens. But they are also not the thing itself. They're always some reduction of it. Even when I was in the State of Union, I was still a limited faction of the divine unity. And so the deeper one goes into the oneness of being, one goes so far that all limitation is obliterated and only unlimitedness is left. But it's like this layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
And do you think some of that is created just for the person and what they remember? Like I've heard NDEs talk about sitting in a garden, and they said the flowers, like you just mentioned, were colors they had never seen before and had trouble describing them, but they were beautiful. But the garden was kind of as they would imagine heaven to be.
Astral, like,
you know, yeah, just
colors.
Well, it had something to do with a person like gardening. So that's how she saw it for that time. She said God had talked to her for 2 weeks and she was stuck on us 2 weeks, but she was only gone, you know, medically for a matter of minutes.
Well, time and
timelessness. With some of what you mentioned.
Right. But she came back, you know.
Yeah. Yes, and how it's just completely different on the other side. Our concepts of time is like a human perception.
Right. Like you were saying, that's why we talk about that all the time. Time's linear here.
Sure. You're going to have out-of-body experiences and whatever you will just happens. You can be there. There's no sense of like, I have to go walk around my house to get to the grill. If I want to see the grill, an out-of-body experience, I just have to think about the grill and I'm there.
And there you are. That's what it was like in heaven too, for me. I think that all the people who come back from the dead see what they need to see to live their lives. So there are near-death experiences. I have this one friend who was an atheist who met God. And so he had no conception of the divine self. And yet whatever this, and I use the word God, use source or whatever word you want to use there. Sure. Yahweh, Allah, whatever. So yes, we see what we know, but no, we don't always see what we know. But always, I think what we come back with is what we need to live the life that we're going to, the new life full of probabilities, this new life with a new perspective. And we carry with us what we saw in order to live the best life we can with that. And also, if we look at mythology, if you look at Hinduism, the Vedas, or the story of Krishna, there's all full of symbolism in that story. The same is true in biblical stories. The same is true in Rumi. The same is true in Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu takes a more direct approach, but there's also metaphor inside of his writing, and it is always filtered through the context of the human brain, an individual human brain, an individual human experience in the context of their language, their religion, and their culture, forms the language that they speak through, forms their understanding of what happened to them in a conceptual way. It doesn't at all change the energy of it. The conceptualization doesn't change the energy of it. That's sort of independent of the thinking of it. But the expression of it gets codified, you could say, in order for self-understanding, but also for interpersonal communication. But this thing itself, this divine energy, it's transmutable, it's transferable, it's communicable. It is when you see the light inside someone else, it's because the light inside of you, with capital L, is seeing the light inside of them. It sees itself. It knows itself. And it wants us to know itself or themselves. That it's part of its draw toward us. And
we're all part of like a greater consciousness that recognizes itself among ourselves. Like we're holding pieces of it, and it sees it like a mirror and says, yes, I exist and I am love. And I think if there is any common thread between the NDE experiences that you've explained to us today, which is awesome.
Yes.
Love your
Thank
story.
You. Yes.
And other NDE experiences I've heard, it is that word. It's love. At the end of the day, it is really love that binds us, that seems to keep us all together, and
unconditional
why
love.
People come back, why they're happy on the other side. It still comes back to this love.
And it's like, love is this interesting word because there are types of love. And it's the aggregate of all of these kinds of loves times a million billion. It's the individual emotional experiences we have of love. The greatest one you've ever experienced, expand that by infinity. That's what we're talking about.
That unconditional, just totally selfless love.
Yep.
But Much bigger.
Where can everybody find you? Get a hold of you, ask you questions,
learn about your experience. I know
I'm at peterpanagore.love, and I run a tomorrow morning to this Saturday. I run a not church, no dogma,
not church. I like that.
Not church, no dogma, no doctrine, no Bravo Sierra, because YouTube won't let me swear. But it's a live show on YouTube on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, where I do deconstruction, but I'm really after Shaktipat. I'm really after direct communication in a context of a community, because where two or more are gathered, the radiance of the light multiplies itself. And that's what we've been experiencing. We've been 2 years into this now, creating a community around this. And it's people are having, this week I had 3 people write to me about the synchronicities of their life, and the way that it has increased through their meditative life and their association with not church. But it's not me, it's the collective. It's the group mystical. It's for mystics. It's a group for mystics.
Well, we're very intrigued. So where do we find us again? I'm going to put it in.
It's YouTube. I'm on, it's under my name, Peter Panagore. And tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, live. I always do it live. And peterpanagore.love is where you can find me. My Audible Best Seller is available globally. It's been picked up for a film, an option. And I do counseling, global counseling via Zoom for mystics. People have had spiritually transformative experiences or near-death experiences. By the way, a near-death experience is a kind of mystical experience. It's in that same box. I do a lot of counseling, and I'm available for conversation. peterpanagore.love.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I love that. I'm going to throw that in a ticker. I'm sorry, I should have done that a little earlier. But if you're just tuning in, www.peterpanagore.love.
Peter. That's my real name is Peter.
We're broadcasting from Rhode Island right now.
Oh, all right. Wicked good.
Sure.
Wicked good.
Wicked good. My daughter went to University of Mass, Dartmouth.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
UMass.
Yeah.
That's right.
Really appreciate it. And everyone watching as well, they appreciated your story as well. And
lots of great comments out there. And I'd like to thank everybody: Anne Marie, Greg Koss, Stephen Woodward, Natalie, Joanne, all our friends out there. Bob Burnell, great question. Of course, Elaine Carr. My mom, my dad going through a very tough time right now. And this is about the most appropriate show I think we could do. It sounds like things are beautiful on the other side.
Oh, so much better. So can I end with one thing?
Absolutely.
So I came back. I chose to come back to help my parents so that they wouldn't suffer. Or suffer as much as they would have without my son, without me being there. So my dad died pretty recently, just before Thanksgiving, and he went through 3 years of hell. And in the end, he came to visit me about a month and a half ago. And when he came to visit me, he was his best self. He was like 35 years old, black beard, black rimmed glasses, black hair, little bow tie, and in a dream. And in this dream, I was walking up the steps on my back deck, and he pulled back the sliding glass door, and he stuck his head out, and he's like, "Hey, Pete." and what was communicated to me was, I'm all right. I'm well. Look at me. I'm good. And then I remembered another part of my near-death experience, which I mentioned today. Up until near-death experience, for me, is something that I brought back this much information. I had this much information on the other side. I could only bring back this much information. But throughout my life, I suddenly like, oh yes, I see that part now. I saw my dad's well-being when I was dead. My whole life I have known my dad's well-being, and so I'm not grieving like the rest of my family. I love my dad, I miss my dad, but I know he is well. I know he is. It's so much relief to know there is no death and there's only love on the other side.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know.
We believe that as well. And stay with us. I'm going to wrap up the show. And I want to tell you a quick story as well. And thank everybody else. Thank you, Peter. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And the rest of you, we will see you this coming week. Thank you for sticking around watching Bigfoot and the Bunny. We'll be back next Thursday with Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. Catch us on wherever you're watching us now.
Bye, guys. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.